live in interesting times. Today's stories. WHO says China's new virus case definition widens the net and ups cases. Vietnam quarantines a commune of 10,000 over coronavirus. Argentina's Guzman says IMF is also responsible for the debt crisis. Gazans delight in home-produced chocolate goods. UN Security Council adopts a resolution calling for a lasting ceasefire in Libya. President Trump unveils the Mideast plan at the White House with Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu. The chairman of the Iowa Democratic Party resigns after the caucus fiasco. Plus, Anime New York City celebrates Japanese art, culture, and food. This is Eagle News coming to you from Las Vegas, bringing you stories from around the globe. I'm Anna Kui. World Health Organization officials explained that adapting the case definition of the COVID-19 virus will widen the net and generate more confirmed cases, as China's new counting methods have caused a dramatic spike in the official death toll from the new coronavirus. Take a look.
First of all, what is important to understand, it's normal during the course of an outbreak to adapt the case definition, because we need to be very close to the reality to monitor the disease, how it is unfolding. And this is what they have done recently, changing the case definition to incorporate mild cases that were not in the initial case definition, but also integrate the cases that are post-symptomatic or with little symptom, because they were testing contacts around the cases.
That shift is actually likely to generate more confirmed cases, not less. This is not an attempt to ignore cases, it's an attempt to widen the net and include milder cases and all lab-confirmed cases regardless of the symptoms. So I think if anything, it's actually throwing the net even wider with a finer mesh, and that's what we want to see in a containment phase.
Vietnam announced Thursday that a commune of 10,000 people will be placed under quarantine due to fears over the spread of the new coronavirus. A health ministry statement said, quote, as of February 13, 2020, we will urgently implement the task of isolation and quarantine of the epidemic area in Son Loi commune. The timeline is for 20 days. There are 15 confirmed cases of the COVID-19 virus in Vietnam, 5 of them in Son Loi commune. In other news, Argentina's economy minister Martin Guzman tells Parliament that the International Monetary Fund, quote, is also responsible for the debt crisis and the economic crisis that Argentina is experiencing today, as the country starts talks to restructure its debt with the fund's representatives in Argentina.
Hoy Argentina vive una profunda crisis económica y social. El país padece una carga de deuda insostenible. El Fondo Monetario Internacional es también responsable por la crisis de deuda y la crisis económica que Argentina está viviendo hoy. Y hoy el país enfrenta una carga de deuda que lo está pisando, que le impide salir de esta espiral recesiva, de esta caída libre que el país venía experimentando.
Recession hit Argentina opens talks this week with a team from the IMF seeking relief from what President Alberto Fernandez says is an unsustainable foreign debt. Left-wing groups called for public protests to press demands for a suspension of debt payments. The government hopes to renegotiate $195 billion of the country's $311 billion foreign debt, including a deeply unpopular $44 billion bailout loan from the Washington-based International Monetary Fund in 2018. An IMF spokesperson in Washington said the aim of the mission is to, quote, continue the ongoing dialogue regarding the Argentine government's economic program and the country's economic perspectives. The mission will also be an opportunity to learn more about the authorities' strategy to approach Argentina's debt situation. Fernandez insists Argentina cannot meet debt payments without economic growth, hampered by inflation of more than 50%, as well as mounting poverty and joblessness. Economist Hector Rubini from Salvador University said, quote, "With the IMF meeting, we'll start to see what the government's economic plan is. The creditors need to know what chance Argentina has of paying its debt." The risk evaluation company Verisk Maplecroft said, quote, "Despite its statement that it wants to pay its debt, so far the government has lacked clarity around key political decisions." Guzman has already met with the IMF while Fernandez embarked on a European tour to drum up support for his proposals. So far, the IMF and the Argentine government have both spoken positively about their exchanges. Rubini said, quote, "The IMF is showing a willingness because it wants to get paid and also in part because it contributed to this situation," referring to the original bailout loan agreed with former President Mauricio Macri for a record $57 billion. When assuming power 2 months ago, Fernandez refused the $13 billion of outstanding disbursements, bringing the total to $44 billion. Meanwhile, in the shadow of rockets and the Islamist movement Hamas, Gazan chocolate factories produce sweet goods banned from export. Israel controls all goods that enter Gaza, imposing a blockade that tightened after the tiny enclave was seized by the Islamist group Hamas in 2007.
دون رفع وإنهاء الحصار الإسرائيلي المفروض على قطاع غزة ووجود حل جذري لقضية قطاع غزة لن يكون هناك أي نشاط اقتصادي أو نمو اقتصادي.
Off a bumpy dirt road in Gaza City, a group of children stood outside a half-open factory door, desperate to get their hands on what was being made inside. "We want chocolate," they shouted at a worker as he left the Al Aris factory, which despite daunting obstacles churns out treats ranging from chocolate-covered biscuits to a Gazan version of a world-famous spread dubbed here Natalia. Buckling in the face of candy-crazed kids, the man popped behind the door and returned with enough free chocolate to rot their growing teeth. Al Aris's products are Gazan, but their components are not, as few of the basic raw ingredients are produced in the impoverished Mediterranean coastal strip. The factory relies on chocolate from as far as Argentina, sugar from African countries, and dried eggs from the Netherlands, with other essentials imported from Turkey and Israel. Israel controls all goods that enter Gaza, imposing a blockade that tightened after the tiny enclave was seized by the Islamist group Hamas in 2007. Hamas has fought 3 wars with the Jewish state, which frequently strikes the strip in response to projectiles fired by militants at Israel. The exchange of fire has escalated since last month after U.S. President Donald Trump unveiled his Middle East peace plan, angrily rejected by the Palestinians as a capitulation to Israeli objectives. But even last week, amid rockets and mortars from Gaza and late-night Israeli airstrikes, the chocolate factories kept whirring. Gaza has no airport. Goods for the strip are usually brought into Ashdod, an Israeli port around 21 miles north of the strip. Getting them into Gaza requires patience and money. While head of Al Aris, said, quote, "From Ashdod, we pay for workers and trucks that takes these goods to the Karem Shalom border, crossing between Gaza and Israel."
بينما في غزة الأجارات مرتفعة، الكهرباء مرتفعة، الوقود مرتفع، المواد الأولية تأتينا عبر مصر وعبر موانئ إسرائيلية، أجور النقل عالية جدا، وبالتالي هذا ينعكس على السعر المنتج النهائي.
Due to Gaza's electricity shortages, IE has installed 3 fuel guzzling generators. "If you want anything done in Gaza, you have to do it yourself," he said. Nutella may be a global phenomena, but Gazans clamor for Natalia, their own version of a chocolate and hazelnut spread. Local factories also make crimpos, a large marshmallow coated in a thick layer of chocolate. The treats are popular, but not necessarily profitable. 400 grams of Natalia sells for just 3 or 4 shekels, about $1, while crimpos sell for as little as 5 shekels per box of 20. With Gaza's unemployment rate at nearly 50%, there is little space to raise prices domestically. and exports to more lucrative markets are largely banned by Israel, which permits some vegetables and clothing to be sold abroad, but not processed food. Maher Al-Taba of the Gaza Chamber of Commerce insisted that factories in the Strip make attractive products that are forbidden from leaving Gaza. He said, quote, "They are banned from being exported even to the West Bank. In Gaza, we have a limited market, so the banning of exports weakens the industry." Despite ongoing tensions, Israel and Hamas have reached a series of agreements over the past year that have slightly eased tensions. That fragile accord led to an event in December which, for a Gazan producer, could fairly be described as momentous. For the first time in years, Gaza exported sweet goods. 8 tons of crimpos were cleared for export to Bahrain, crossing through Israel and the West Bank to Jordan, and onward to the Gulf Arab state. Wael Al-Wadia, chairman of Sarayo Al-Wadia company that made the crimpos, said, quote, "What I exported was 1 day's work only. Right now, we have 150 employees at the company. If they open the door to exports, we will have people working 3 shifts, each one 8 hours. So the number will go from 150 to between 300 and 450.
المصنع الحصري والأول في قطاع غزة اللي صدرنا اللي هو حلوى الشتوي اللي هو الكريمبو. طبعا هذا اجى بعد اللي هي موافقة من الجانب الإسرائيلي لعملية التصدير. يعني هي كلها مرتبطة الشغلة تقدر تقول السياسة دائما داخلة في الاقتصاد.
But in recent days, the situation has slipped backwards again. After increased Gaza rocket fire following Trump's peace proposal, Israel again tightened the export rules and canceled 500 permits for Gazans to work in Israel. But Wadia remains optimistic. He said, quote, "If you can succeed in Gaza, you can succeed anywhere." Up next, UN Security Council adopts a resolution calling for a lasting ceasefire in Libya. President Trump unveils the Mideast plan at the White House with Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu. The chairman of the Iowa Democratic Party resigns after the caucus fiasco. Plus, Anime New York City celebrates Japanese art, culture, and food. Eagle News will be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is Eagle News coming to you from Las Vegas. The UN Security Council on Wednesday adopted a resolution calling for a lasting ceasefire in war-torn Libya, where a fragile truce has been in place since January. The text drafted by Britain was approved by 14 votes out of 15, with Russia abstaining. It was subject to weeks of discussions, reflecting deep international divisions over Libya, despite world leaders recently agreeing to end all foreign interference in the country and to uphold a weapons embargo. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump, with Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at his side in the White House, unveils long-awaited details of a U.S. plan for solving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Take a look.
Under this vision, Jerusalem will remain Israel's undivided, very important, undivided capital. We will also work to create a contiguous territory within the future Palestinian state for when the conditions for statehood are met, including the firm rejection of terrorism. Peace requires compromise, but we will never ask Israel to compromise its security. Can't do that. It is only reasonable that I have to do a lot for the Palestinians, or it just wouldn't be fair. Now, don't clap for that, okay? But it's true. It wouldn't be fair. I want this deal to be a great deal for the Palestinians. It has to be. Yet I know they are ready to escape their tragic past and realize a great destiny. But we must break free of yesterday's failed approaches. This map will more than double the Palestinian territory and provide a Palestinian capital in eastern Jerusalem, where America will proudly open an embassy.
And on this day, you too have charted a brilliant future for Israelis, Palestinians, and the region by presenting a realistic path to a durable peace.
Troy Price, the chairman of the Iowa Democratic Party, resigned Wednesday after the state's chaotic first-in-the-nation presidential nomination contest, calling the technology problems and questionable accuracy of the process, quote, unacceptable. Pete Buttigieg ultimately won the Iowa caucuses 2 weeks ago in a narrow victory over Bernie Sanders. But the delayed results were marred by multiple technical issues, and the Sanders campaign has asked for a recanvassing check of the vote. In his resignation letter, Price noted by all accounts, the precinct and satellite caucus meetings themselves went well. He said Democrats of all backgrounds came together united in the goal of defeating Donald Trump and electing new leadership for our country. However, there is no doubt that the process of reporting results did not work. It was simply unacceptable. He wrote, quote, while it is my desire to stay in this role and see this process through to completion, I do believe it is time for the Iowa Democratic Party to begin looking forward. My presence in my current role makes that more difficult. Price nevertheless said the Iowa branch of the party was not the only party to blame, mentioning the partners and vendors involved in the process. On caucus night, people who support a given candidate literally stand together in part of a caucus site to show their support. For the 2020 election cycle, Price and his party had implemented new rules that were supposed to ensure greater transparency and efficiency in the voting process. A new app distributed to precinct officials was supposed to help them report results more quickly, but a coding error threw the process into complete disarray. Iowa Democratic leaders will meet Saturday to elect an interim president. Although results from Iowa hand out only a tiny fraction of the 1,991 delegates needed to win the Democratic presidential nomination in July, the small state has traditionally been an important stepping stone on the long road to the White House, a role that is now being questioned. In the city that never sleeps, fans get a treat at this year's Anime New York City, where thousands celebrate Japanese art, culture, and food. Eagle News correspondent Abigail Vital gets up close with some of them. Take a look.
Here at Jacob Javits Center in New York City, 46,000 anime fans gathered for 3 days to participate in a convention called Anime NYC. Currently in its third year, Anime NYC gives fans a unique experience to celebrate Japanese animation and pop culture. While fan favorites include watching anime, reading manga, playing a wide variety of video games, and cosplaying, food also unites the community and allows them to experience Japanese culture on a different level.
The way I can see, Japanese know how to grow their own herbs and veggies, and that's how the Japanese take care of themselves very well, because they grow their own food.
The food is very unique because not only that it tastes great, but they have a really small portion, and there's a lot of comfort food, which is relatively healthy.
Well, it's a huge part of our culture. Well, I'm Japanese, so I think a lot of people know Japan because of that, so yeah.
With Japanese pop culture being a visual feast for the eyes, it is no surprise that Japanese food not only tastes delicious, but looks like works of art.
It needs to be it has to taste good, but then I think Japanese people like to take the extra step to present well, I think they value customer service, so that's why, yeah.
You get a certain feel of another country within you.
Talking to these awesome fans about food is making me hungry for some ramen. Reporting from Jacob Javits Center in New York City, I'm Julie Ann Evangelista for Eagle News 1 with 25.
Thanks, Abigail. That is today's Eagle News. Join us again tomorrow for stories that matter to you. Visit our websites at eaglenews.net and eaglenewslive.com. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/eaglenews and on Facebook at facebook.com/eaglenews. Thank you for watching. I'm Anna Kui, and I'm 1 with 25.